The Chicago client meeting ended 3 hours early when their CEO had a family emergency. So I caught the 2 p.m. flight instead of the red-eye. I hadn't told my wife Lisa I was coming home early. I wanted to surprise her after being away for 5 days. When I pulled into our driveway at 6 p.m., I saw an unfamiliar car parked in my spot and heard voices coming from our backyard. My name is Nicholas Turner, 38 years old, account executive for a medical device company, and I was about to discover a secret that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I travel for work 2-3 days per week, managing accounts across the Midwest for surgical equipment sales. Lisa and I had been married for 6 years, and she'd always supported my career, despite the frequent absences. We'd been trying to have children for 3 years without success, which had put some strain on our relationship. But I thought we were working through it together. Walking toward the voices in my backyard, I expected to find Lisa having dinner with a friend or neighbor. Instead, I found something that made me question everything about our marriage. I approached our back patio quietly, not wanting to interrupt what sounded like an intimate conversation. Through the sliding glass door, I could see Lisa sitting across from a man I'd never seen before. Tall, well-dressed, roughly my age. They were holding hands across our outdoor table, and Lisa was crying. "I can't keep doing this, David," she was saying. "Nicholas will find out eventually, and when he does, it's going to destroy him." I stood frozen behind the door, my luggage still in my hand, as my wife continued, "The baby's due in 4 months. We have to tell him the truth." Lisa and I met 7 years ago at a pharmaceutical conference in Atlanta. She was working as a medical sales representative for a competing company, and we'd connected over shared frustrations about travel schedules and client demand. Finally, someone who understands why I'm always living in hotels, Lisa had joked during our first conversation at the conference bar. We'd hit it off immediately, bonding over similar backgrounds, both of us from small Midwest towns, both working in medical sales, both ambitious about our careers but wanting to eventually settle down and start family. Our courtship was conducted largely through phone calls and weekend visits across different cities, but that actually strengthened our connection. We valued our time together and communicated constantly when apart. We married after 2 years of dating, bought a house in Cincinnati, and settled into a comfortable rhythm of managing 2 demanding travel careers while building a life together. The fertility struggles began during our 3rd year of marriage. We'd been trying to conceive for over a year without success, so we sought medical evaluation. The tests revealed that I had severely reduced sperm count and motility, not impossible to conceive naturally, but significantly reduced chances without medical intervention. "We have options," Dr. Sarah Martinez explained during our consultation. "IVF, IUI, and other fertility treatments have good success rates for couples with male factor infertility." Lisa was supportive and optimistic about pursuing fertility treatment. "We'll figure this out together," she assured me when I expressed frustration about my condition. "There are lots of ways to build a family." We tried 3 rounds of IUI over the next year, all unsuccessful. The process was emotionally and financially draining, with hormone treatments, constant medical appointments, and the monthly disappointment of negative pregnancy tests. During this period, my travel schedule intensified as our company expanded into new markets. I was away from home 3-4 days per week, sometimes more during product launches or training seminars. "I feel like I'm going through this fertility journey alone," Lisa mentioned during one of our conversations about family planning. "You're traveling so much and I'm handling most of the medical appointments and treatments by myself." I felt guilty about my absence during such a difficult time, but my sales performance was critical for covering the costs of fertility treatments and maintaining our lifestyle. "Once we get pregnant, I'll request a reduced travel territory," I promised Lisa. "But right now, I need to maximize my commission to pay for treatments." Lisa seemed to understand, though I could see the stress of fertility struggles, and my frequent absence was affecting her mood and energy. 6 months ago, Lisa announced she wanted to take a break from fertility treatments. "I need some time to focus on other aspects of my life," she explained. "The constant medical appointments and hormone treatments are exhausting. Maybe if we relax and stop trying so hard, it'll happen naturally." This seemed reasonable, and I was relieved to take a break from the emotional roller coaster of monthly treatment cycles. During this period, Lisa seemed happier and more relaxed than she'd been in years. She'd started a yoga practice, was socializing more with friends, and had taken up gardening as a new hobby. "You seem really content lately," I told her during one of my brief stops at home between trips. "I feel like I'm rediscovering myself," Lisa replied. "I'd been so focused on getting pregnant that I forgot about other things that make me happy." I was pleased to see Lisa developing interests and friendships outside of our fertility struggle. Lisa mentioned she'd connected with other couples dealing with infertility through a support group she'd started attending. "It's helpful to talk to people who understand what we're going through," she said. "Some of them have been dealing with this for years and have found different ways to cope." I was supportive of Lisa finding community and emotional support, especially since my travel schedule prevented me from being as present as I wanted during this difficult time. 3 months ago, Lisa started mentioning one support group member more frequently, a man named David, whose wife had died in a car accident after they'd completed several unsuccessful fertility treatments. "David understands the grief of losing the dream of biological children," Lisa explained when I asked about this new friendship. "He's been really helpful in processing some of my feelings about our situation." I felt a twinge of jealousy about Lisa confiding in another man about our private struggles, but I recognized that I hadn't been as emotionally available as she needed. "Maybe I should meet David sometime," I suggested. "It might be helpful to talk to someone who's been through similar experiences." "Maybe," Lisa replied vaguely. "He's pretty private about his grief. I don't think he's ready to socialize with couples yet." Over the following weeks, Lisa began spending more time at support group activities, coffee meetings, group dinners, and weekend retreats focused on healing and personal growth. "The support group is becoming a really important part of my healing process," Lisa told me. "I'm learning so much about myself and what I want from life." I was happy that Lisa was finding emotional support and personal growth opportunities, even though I felt somewhat excluded from this aspect of her life. 2 months ago, Lisa seemed different in subtle ways that I couldn't quite identify. She was more energetic, had started wearing new clothes that were more flattering to her figure, and seemed to glow with a happiness I hadn't seen since before our fertility struggles began. "You look beautiful lately," I told her during one of my weekend stops at home. "Whatever you're doing for self-care is really working." Lisa blushed and smiled mysteriously. "I just feel more like myself again." I assumed this positive change was related to her decision to take a break from fertility treatments and focus on other aspects of personal fulfillment. Last month, Lisa mentioned she was considering making some major life change. "I've been thinking about what I really want from life," she told me during a phone conversation while I was traveling. "Maybe we've been too focused on having biological children instead of considering other ways to build a family." "What kind of other ways?" "Adoption, fostering, or maybe focusing on being the best aunt and uncle we can be to our siblings' children." These seemed like healthy perspectives on alternative family structures, though I still hoped we might eventually conceive naturally. "Are you saying you want to stop trying to get pregnant entirely?" "I'm saying I want to be open to whatever family structure brings us the most joy and fulfillment." This conversation had stuck with me during my recent business trip to Chicago. Lisa seemed to be processing our fertility challenges in productive ways, and I was looking forward to having deeper discussions about our future when I returned home. That's why I decided to surprise her by coming home early from Chicago. Standing behind our patio door, listening to Lisa's conversation with David, I felt like I was watching my life implode in real time. The baby's due in 4 months. Lisa was pregnant, something we'd been trying to achieve for 3 years, but she was discussing it with another man, and her tone suggested this pregnancy wasn't something she was celebrating. I quietly moved to a better vantage point where I could see both Lisa and David clearly. David was holding Lisa's hands and speaking earnestly about something I couldn't hear clearly. Lisa was nodding and wiping tears from her eyes. After several minutes, David stood up and embraced Lisa in a way that was definitely not platonic support group friendship. They kissed passionately, and David's hands moved to Lisa's stomach in a gesture that was unmistakably intimate and possessive. Lisa was having an affair, and she was pregnant with another man's child. I stood frozen for several more minutes, trying to process the scope of what I was witnessing. The support group had been a cover story for an affair. The break from fertility treatments hadn't been about reducing stress. It had been because Lisa was already pregnant with someone else's baby. Her recent happiness and energy weren't from personal growth. They were from being in love with another man. Most devastating, Lisa and David were discussing how to handle telling me about the pregnancy, which meant they'd been planning to pass off another man's child as mine. I backed away from the patio door and walked quietly to my car, my mind racing through the implications of what I'd discovered. I needed time to think and plan before confronting Lisa about this betrayal. I drove to a hotel downtown and checked in for the night, then called my brother Mark, who lived 2 hours away. "Nick, what's wrong? You sound terrible." I explained what I'd discovered, trying to keep my voice steady as I described the scene on our patio. "Jesus. Nick, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. I need to think through the legal and financial implications before I confront her." Mark offered to drive to Cincinnati immediately, but I told him I needed space to process everything before making any decision. That night, I couldn't sleep as I replayed the past 6 months, recognizing all the signs I'd missed or misinterpreted. Lisa's improved mood hadn't been from healing. It had been from falling in love with someone else. Her new clothes and physical changes hadn't been from self-care. They'd been from pregnancy and wanting to look attractive for her lover. Her philosophical conversations about alternative family structures hadn't been about adoption. They'd been about preparing me to raise another man's child. The next morning, I called my attorney, Patricia Chen, who specialized in family law. "Patricia, I need to discuss divorce proceedings, but there are some unusual circumstances." I explained the situation, including the pregnancy and Lisa's apparent plan to deceive me about the child's parentage. "Nick, this is a complex situation with potential criminal implications," Patricia said. "Misrepresenting paternity could constitute fraud, especially if it affects financial support obligations. What should I do?" "Document everything before confronting your wife. If she's planning to deceive you about paternity, you need evidence of her intent to commit fraud." Patricia explained that I should gather evidence of Lisa's affair and her discussions about the pregnancy before confronting her about the deception. "If you confront her immediately, she might destroy evidence or change her story about the timeline and circumstances." I spent the day gathering evidence of Lisa's deception. I checked our phone records and found extensive communication between Lisa and David over the past 4 months. Hundreds of calls and text messages during times when Lisa had told me she was at support group meeting. I reviewed our credit card statements and found charges for romantic dinners, hotel stays, and expensive gifts that Lisa had purchased for someone else. Most importantly, I found documentation of Lisa's medical appointments that showed she'd been receiving prenatal care for several months, while telling me she was taking a break from fertility treatment. Armed with this evidence, I returned home the next evening and found Lisa alone, preparing dinner. "Nick, you're back early. How was Chicago?" Lisa seemed nervous, probably because David's car had been in our driveway when I'd arrived home the previous day. "Chicago was fine, but I need to talk to you about something important." I sat down at our kitchen table and pulled out printed copies of the phone records, credit card statements, and medical appointment records. "Lisa, I know about David. I know about the pregnancy. And I know you've been planning to lie to me about the baby's paternity." Lisa's face went white, and she sat down heavily in the chair across from me. "Nick, I can explain everything. Lisa, I came home yesterday and saw you with David on our patio. I heard you discussing how to tell me about the pregnancy. I know this has been going on for months." Lisa started crying, but I continued before she could speak. "I've spent the past 2 days gathering evidence of your affair and your deception. I know about the hotel charges, the gifts you bought him, and the prenatal appointments you've been hiding from me." Lisa's tears intensified, but she didn't deny any of my accusations. "What I want to know is whether you were planning to let me believe this baby was mine." Lisa looked down at the table for a long moment before answering. "I didn't know how to tell you. We'd been trying for so long, and when I got pregnant with David, I thought maybe it could be a gift to both of us." "A gift?" "Lisa, you were planning to commit paternity fraud. You were going to let me raise and financially support another man's child under false pretenses. I thought you'd be happy to finally have a baby, even if the biological father was someone else." This response showed how completely Lisa had lost perspective on the ethical and legal implications of her deception. "Lisa, this isn't just about having a baby. This is about fraud, deception, and stealing years of my life to support a lie." I handed Lisa the divorce papers that Patricia had prepared that morning. "I'm filing for divorce based on adultery and attempted fraud.
The evidence I've gathered will support both claims. Lisa tried to argue that she'd made mistakes but hadn't intended to hurt me permanently. I love you, Nick. David was just someone who understood my pain about infertility. The relationship got complicated, but I never meant to destroy our marriage. Lisa, you've been lying to me for months about where you were going, who you were with, and what you were doing. You got pregnant with another man while we were married and planned to deceive me about paternity. That's not a mistake. That's calculated fraud. Lisa eventually admitted the full scope of her deception, including the timeline of her relationship with David and her plans for handling the pregnancy. David was a divorced father of two who'd never actually experienced infertility. Lisa had lied to me about his background to make the support group story more believable. They'd been planning to continue their relationship after the baby was born while maintaining the fiction that I was the biological father. Lisa had even researched legal strategies for preventing DNA testing if I ever became suspicious about the child's parentage. The divorce proceedings were completed within 6 months. Lisa received no alimony due to the adultery clause, and I kept our house and retirement savings. David ended his relationship with Lisa shortly after she moved out, apparently having lost interest once the excitement of the secret affair was gone. Lisa gave birth to a son who clearly resembled David rather than me. She's now a single mother working to rebuild her life and career while dealing with the reputation damage from the fraud accusations. I moved to a different city for a fresh start, and eventually met someone who values honesty and doesn't view marriage as an opportunity for deception. The experience taught me that travel careers can create vulnerabilities in marriages, but those vulnerabilities only matter if your spouse is willing to exploit them. Lisa had used my absence to build an entire secret life based on lies and deception. Coming home early didn't just reveal Lisa's affair. It prevented me from being trapped in years of unknowingly supporting someone else's child while my wife continued her secret relationship. Sometimes the best surprise is discovering the truth before it's too late to protect yourself from people who view your love as an opportunity for fraud.